So again, welcome to another Ask the Leaders session with me, Wayne Fitzgerald. I'm the leader of Peterborough City Council, and we've got yet more people online today. Making a second appearance with no doubt some new questions is Mr. Graham Harris there on the screen. And indeed, it is Ken Barker, both local residents. And from the City Council, from the communications team, is Amanda Rose, who is able to assist and guide us through the questions, not the live questions. There'll be some just where people can't appear tonight. And also from our client services team, who looks after Aragon and any number of other things, is James Collingridge. So this is all about how people can interact with me and the City Council with any questions you might like to ask, which is why it's called Ask the Leader. So I'm open to anything, and I'll try and assist, whether you want to come online in person, like these good folks have, or indeed just drop us a line, or we'll read out your question and hopefully we'll give you an answer to what you want to do. So as I say, we've got two live contributors on the call tonight. So I might as well go to the first one, which is Ken. If you'd like to ask your question, from looking at it, it's quite lengthy, but by all means, you ask it in the way you want, and we'll do our very best to answer for you, Ken.
As you know, I initially wrote the ask a question to yourself. And my general question at that point in time was not anything specific about my road, which James knows. I've been beating a drum for the last 4 years about that. But my specific question was about the general untitled. I'm sorry, I'm reading this because I actually emailed this to you. But my
absolutely fine. You do it whatever way you're comfortable.
My specific question relates to the general untidiness due to the ongoing lack of grass cutting and maintenance to the whole of Peterborough. I wasn't discussing relevant to Park Crescent, that follows. I was talking about Peterborough as a general. I said noting areas like the Parkway, slip roads, roundabouts and alike, which are left until this September for there to be the one and only cutback. I assume that is the same arrangement that we've got in the park, and that you're only cutting it once a year. So you've allowed trees and shrubs and things like that to grow 5-6 foot high. And in some areas, I consider that quite dangerous, as I've actually sent you some photographs sort of showing you areas where there are trees and shrubs where you actually can't see on a roundabout. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, joining a ring road of Peterborough can be very dangerous because there's so much overgrowth that when you join, you realise that there's a lorry there that you didn't see. But anyway, I did talk about the overgrowth of the general areas and the potentially dangerous areas. But I said, on a more personal note, you should be aware, as you've been copied into, Wayne, as well as Nigel Simmons, of the ongoing issues regarding the lack of maintenance to much of Central Park and to my road, Park Crescent. James is aware I've voiced the concerns of 22 neighbours regarding the ongoing issues to this road and Central Park, considered by the council as the jewel in the crown, but is actually deemed as a low priority area, which is what James has told me. Over the last 4 years, I've had numerous emails with James Coleridge, meetings on site with him, Aragon, that was Chris, I think. Was it Chris or Andy? I can't remember, James. Chris or Andy, I can't remember, in June. And then there was a minutes meeting, which was actually produced and sent, again, which you were copied into, Wayne, regarding all these issues of Park Crescent. And I was informed about 2 weeks ago, James, that we are going to see a much improved amount of work. I'm actually not convinced. If you actually go outside today, and I took some photographs this morning, I have never seen this road so bad. I drove from Wellington to my home this afternoon, and honestly, I went past good area after good area after good area. I turned into Park Crescent. I know, it was a shame. It's just an absolute sight. Anyway, we're told that it's unacceptable. Biodiversity seemed to be the buzzword at that point in time, but actually I think Nigel, when we walked around with Nigel said, this isn't biodiversity, this is a bloody mess. And it's becoming a bigger problem still, because I believe that we're going to end up with more road traffic issues, We're going to have problems with regards to the safety of parking of cars, as I've explained to James before. If you can't see into the park, you can't see out of the park. And recently we've just had a spate of windows broken on cars, which I said would happen and has actually happened. As far as I'm concerned, the council, arrogant as their appointed contractor, are actually doing a very shoddy service. And that's the basis of my argument. Are you still there, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm still here. So
just prior to your invitation to ask a question to yourself, I'd actually already written to the Evening Telegraph, and actually that went live last week, and they have actually made the true state of Central Park. My view of the representation of people on this road. You tell me whether I'm just complaining or whinging. I don't mind which. I know what we've got.
Well, okay. If I may first, James might want to comment in a minute, and I could read you a whole list of things, but may I ask you a question? What would you like me to do about it?
I'd like you to clean this road on a regular basis. We are told that this road, being just one issue I've got, not just this issue, this road should be swept once a week. That doesn't happen. James knows that doesn't happen. We've had periods in the last few weeks where it became an 8-week gap. I believe that the park, the external part of the park, is completely overgrown, and James says it's going to be cut back. Whether it'll be cut back and then it'll all grow again and be left to have the same problem, I do not know. But the problem I do have with regards to Peterborough as a town is that because you leave the parkways and you leave all the slip roads so overgrown with this lack of maintenance, this, I use the word shoddy service, this once a year, is it biodiversity or is it just a bloody mess? I believe that there should be a purge in this town to actually cut everything back and to make this place look like people want to live here. It puts out a really bad message. I used a statement, and pardon me for the ladies that are involved, if it looks like shit, you can treat it as shit.
James, I'm going to invite you to comment at this point. I will come back to you, Ken, on some thoughts about the whys, the wherefores, and so on. But James, I mean,
yep.
You've obviously had some dialogue with Ken here, so do you want to just make some comments about?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, on the parkways, parkways currently we cut the grass on there 3 times a year, and it's cut to 1.5 meters. So it's cut back 1.5 meters from the parkway. That's done under lane closure each year, obviously, because it's high-speed roads. A47 that goes through Peterborough isn't maintained by us. That's under the Highways Agency. And then during the winter months, that's when the teams will go in where we've got trees, vegetation that is blocking signs and things like that. They'll be coming in to pick those up over the winter months as well. With regards to Central Park, yep. So on Park Crescent, we're going to be doing a hard cutback along that area that we discussed, Ken, this year. So we're going to be bringing those shrubs right down to the height of the fence. So like the areas that we looked at where there were benches where it looked quite obtrusive really sitting there because the shrubs were quite overgrown around them, they will all be brought down to fence height. So we will be able to look straight through the park, like you said about the safety for cars parking on the road. With regards to the sweeper, the sweeper, we have 2 different types of sweepers. So they have the smaller sweeper that does the paths, and then they have the larger sweeper that does the road, which is supposed to come on a weekly basis. I think we've both had arguments with Aragon on whether it has been coming or hasn't, because they're saying it has come on their tracker, but then you've shown me images where it doesn't look as though it's done a really good job. I know they have had issues with the larger sweeper recently being off the road, but what I've said to Rachel is if we've got issues where we've got vehicles off the road, even if we just let you know it hasn't come this week because it's off the road, but not wait for you to have to complain that it's not come. So being more informative to you so you know what's happening.
Okay, thanks, James. So Ken, the brutal truth of it, and if I may ask, because it'd be public record, how much council tax do you pay per year for your property?
About £3,000. Yeah.
Sorry?
About £3,000.
About £3,000. So in order for me to improve the service, you would have to pay, and everybody else would, an extra £180 a year for the next 5 or 6 years at 6% pro rata. Because let's deal with first things first. It's unacceptable when agreed things aren't done. So, but these guys are only human. So if they miss something or do something poorly, then you, me, taxpayers have a right to complain. I would love to be able to spend, £2-3 million more on maintenance, such as street cleaning or grass cutting or, hedge pruning, although we are restricted on that in terms of nesting season. Even things like cleaning street signs, stuff that you and I might think is everyday things, but it all comes at a cost. And again, I'll repeat for your benefit what I've said to other people, is that we have lost somewhere north of £50 million a year from our budget, and we're not able to increase council tax to replace that money beyond, I'll round it up for you, 2%. There is a 2% precept, which is a social care precept, which is ring fenced for social care. So we are not allowed as a council, without holding a referendum or indeed getting special permission from government to increase council tax, to make up the shortfall of 50 million. So the things that you're describing are evidenced by the way things look and the way things are maintained. You have to cut your cloth accordingly. And unless people, and I'm one of those people, I'll happily pay more council tax for improved services and better services. And I think people would do that. But we have to accept and recognise that we have to live within our means. And Peterborough is the 9th lowest unitary authority for council tax. I'll give you some idea of what that means. So per head, we are £711 per head, whereas the average is 785. So you and I, Ken, and everybody else watching pays less council tax than the average unitary authority. So we need to move to a more equitable position. And the only way we can do that is increase fees and charges, or indeed council tax. But I've already said to you, we're not allowed to do that because government won't allow us to do it. So we have to look for growth. And people often talk to me about, why is there this, or why is there that, or why are we doing this? Because with growth comes revenue, whether that's in more housing, because we get more council tax, and the higher band properties in council tax is more beneficial to the council. If we also encourage businesses to come to Peterborough, and by the way, there's a lot of people wanting to come here, we can't stop them, our growth is phenomenal. The business rates that we get from that, because we're in something called business rates pooling, is also beneficial to the council. So look, it simply does come down to money. And, we've touched upon brown bins and all sorts of charges before, which is not something we statutorily have to do. But in order to do that service, we have to charge for it, or we can't do it. Because when you have to balance priorities within a budget, and let's say circa £160 million, which the council gets. Now, if you add 50 million back to that, you can see that's a big chunk of money. And we no longer can do what we could do. When I joined the council in 2006, we were not awash with money, but there was more money around, and quite simply now there isn't. And we are having to look very hard at what we can do. And you have to split that up, Ken, between statutory services, the things we must do, and the things that we don't have to do. So we don't have to do certain things, and they are the things that go first when we're prioritizing how we spend money. Now, you as a member of the public, every year, just like everybody else, get a chance to input into that budget setting process, and it's all available online. We're just about to launch phase 1 of next year's budget, and it's a challenge. It's going to be challenging to bridge what is a structural deficit that the council has, and we constantly are fighting that battle. So look, I entirely agree with you about the way certain things look or the way that services are, but unless you're prepared to pay me 6%, so it's an extra 2%, for example, on your already existing 4%, I can't invest in the services in the staff that, say, James is responsible for with Aragon, or anything else, without people putting their hand in their pocket. Now, if there is waste, always tell us about waste, which is why you should input into the budget. If there's something you think we're doing that makes a substantial difference to the way the council runs its services, and we ourselves have had external consultants in to look at the way the council services are run, and we constantly check ourselves. But that is the reality of it, that we are probably, several million light in the areas that you're talking about. And I would love to be out there, cleaning the streets every day. I'd like to have a man with a brush. Where are the men with the brushes gone? People ask me that. Well, we simply can't afford to have them. And that is the financial reality of running Peterborough City Council in 2021. And it doesn't matter who's in charge, politically. The same problems would exist tomorrow if there was a change of administration.
So it is quite acceptable for the roads of Peterborough to be dangerous because people can't see as they go on slip roads.
I'm not saying
that's quite acceptable.
No, I didn't say that.
It's quite acceptable for shoddy service, for intermittent service. You talk about it being a £711 average. There's two people in this house. We pay £3,000. That ain't £711.
Well, that's not average.
With all due respect, I could really rant with regards to what we pay for what we get. You have just done this business, this deal with regards to brown bins. Brown bins. They're not going to be collected, so you're going to repay our money back. Mm-hmm. You don't clean our streets. What do we get back?
We
get shoddy service.
Ken, you're not. You're getting reduced services.
No, we're getting shoddy service.
It is shoddy, as in somebody does the job badly.
When you read a sign that as you go into the park and it says, "We are working hard to make this park beautiful," that's exactly what it says. And you step inside the park, and Nigel says to me, "Nah, this ain't biodiversity." You were there, James. He said,
"Hang on.
This is."
So look. So what I started asking you is, what do you want me to do?
I would like you to do what you're paid to do. With all due respect, utilise the money accordingly and make this town proper and safe. And one of the areas that you can do that, is by putting the grass cutting done properly. It's one of the things I never get. One of the things I really never understand. You'll get to an area like at Warrington. You go to Warrington and you go to Warrington Roundabout at Papyrus Road. You know what I mean? Where Bannatynes is and such like. You go up David's Lane. On the corner there, it's left still 4 foot tall. You go round into David's Lane, it's cut back. The cost of cutting that piece of grass would have taken 5 minutes. I don't know what Aragon charge you for doing that. But it must be more difficult for the guy to stop and think what he's got to do as opposed to cut it.
James will explain the rationale about that in a second. So look, let me just get some. I asked you what you want me to do. So if the job is being done badly, so look, I'd like to cut the grass 6 times a year. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Well, unfortunately, that's what we used to get.
Yeah, but what I've told you is we are 50 million less. So unless you want to put your hand in your pocket with everybody else and pay more,
not a problem.
Government have taken away £50 million. So you cannot maintain the level of service with less money. We're talking about 2 different things. You said shoddy, right? Now, I don't believe, I'm not saying in every case, that the council team do a shoddy job. They may be doing it less, I accept that, but I've told you why that is. The fact is, you cannot maintain the same level of service with less money. So all that's happened is the level of service has gone down. So there may be less grass cuts, okay? But I would take exception, and I would be interested to know if somebody's doing, albeit less, a poor job. James, you just want to explain about why certain grass is cut and not cut,
Yep.
etc. Because it might be that it's like when you lay carpet, Ken, you're laying on a price per foot or yard, okay? So there is a cost to every yard or foot you cut. So you're making choices about how to make that money go further. That's my simplistic understanding. But James, could you just expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, so we do have various regimes across the city. So we've got the general norm is the 8 cut. So most of our open spaces, apart from Central Park, which obviously does get a lot more cuts than 8. We then have 3 cut areas, which is most of your parkway verges. So they're all cut 3 times a year. We've got several sites that are set as biodiversity that only get 1 cut, but they have pathways cut through them during the year. And then we have a few sites, especially around Cuckoo's Hollow in Warrington, that are cut 4 times a year. And that's done as a management plan with various agencies looking at how we can best enhance the nature around that area of Cuckoo's Hollow. The area that you've just mentioned on David's Lane, I'll take that away, Ken, to find out, because I'm not aware that there should be any different regime there. So it may be that we haven't adopted it back since works have been carried out, but I can clarify that to you.
James.
Quite often, Ken, it's not straightforward about land ownership. So even though some people think a strip of land is in the ownership of the council, it may not be, and it could belong to different people. So we have to be careful. It's the same about, often fly tipping. People go, well, why haven't you moved the fly tipping? Because it's not our job to remove fly tipping from private land. It's the duty of the landowner. But look, I'll come back to you, and you're saying, is it acceptable? It's not acceptable that we are having to make compromises. And I want to be perfectly clear again with you that, I'm not talking about your property. I'm giving you, and they're not my figures, they're stats, they're proper stats about, where we are as a unitary authority and what our average, contribution per head is. And I'm trying to tell you that, whilst we can say we're the 9th lowest unitary, that's great, but it's not great, because if we were nearer the average unitary, we would have more money to spend on services such as grass cutting and road sweeping and so on and so forth. But, be under no illusion. It's not that the council is doing a bad job. The council is trying to live within the budget it has. And if you want to get engaged in the budget process, please come and I'll take you through it. And then if you can tell me something that we're not doing or that we should be doing, I'll be only too happy to listen to you about how we might be able to do that better.
I won't do that. But I'll tell you what I do. I'll invite you and James to get in my car and drive around this town, and I'll show you what this town looks like.
I already know. I live here too.
You try and convince me, sir, that this is good.
I didn't try to convince you it's good. I'm telling you it's reality.
What you're telling me is actually quite pathetic. I believe it is quite a pathetic answer to say that it's all based on budget. No, it's all based on good intention. Are we trying to promote this city with good intention, or are we just saying this is what it's going to have to be? This is all I can afford.
Well, the financial reality is we're all trying to do our best.
If you haven't got the gumption to want to improve yourself,
we're trying to do that all the time.
Well, I have to say you're not putting out a very good message to me.
That's why I do these things. Now, look, everybody's entitled to a view.
Absolutely.
Conversely, I have other people saying what a good job we're doing. I could tell you, or I could show you letters.
I'm only talking about one issue. I'm not talking about.
No. I'm talking about, for example, play equipment, that we're investing in play facilities for young children. And, conversely, we get letters saying what a great job that is. What a good job that is. But look, I'm going to be honest with you. It's reality. I want to be able to spend more money on our city services, which is the public facing street scene. I don't need to drive around with you. I live here myself.
Cool.
I can see it in front of me. So, when we talk about grass cutting or sweeping the roads, yeah, we could do more. But it doesn't get around the reality of we can't afford to do more unless we raise more money. So we're not disagreeing, Ken. We're just saying, yeah, we could do more. It's not acceptable. And people will need to pay more money if, like you want improved services. Because at the moment, statistics say that ratepayers in Peterborough do not pay the average when compared with other local authorities of similar budgets and similar size. That's because we kept council tax low for too long. And instead of building up a, shall we say, a fund over a number of years, in the last 20 years, it's been fairly low council tax. And if you don't have to believe me, just research it, look it up, and you will find that compared with other local authorities, Ken, we as ratepayers, that's you and I and Amanda and James and Mr. Harris there, we are paying below the average, which means services suffer when we've had cuts from central government in the grant that they give us, that we don't have the council tax base, which is why, again, I come back to the more council houses we build, the more businesses we promote, the more can go back into the very services that you're talking about. But no, it's not acceptable, but it is a financial reality, which is why I say to you and anybody else, input into the budget. If you think that the council, the administration, can be doing something different, then please tell me what it is, because I keep an acute eye on the numbers. And I can assure you, just the same as you, we're all trying to do our best to promote the city and make it a positive place. I am a glass half full kind of guy, and there are far worse places to live than Peterborough. Peterborough is a great place to live. And yes, it has its problems, as do other local authorities. But by and large, when I go in Central Park, I know it's not perfect, but I go in there and I use the cafe and the facilities, and people by and large are having a good time. Yes, we could do more. And there are lots of things I could read out to you on this bit of paper about, investment that is going on there. And in terms of, whether that's roads, the pathways and park facilities, which I know you'll probably know quite a lot about. But, look, please, Ken, do take it at heart that we are trying to do our best. It's not perfect. I'm not going to be claiming to be perfect, but nobody is. I wouldn't want you to think that we're not trying to do our best. And if our best isn't good enough, then we need to pay more money for it, because nothing in life is free. Graham, did you want to say something? Even though it's not, you'll have to take yourself off mute, but it's not your question, but I'm happy that you chip in. 1 second. I'll see if I can unmute you. Ask to unmute. There we go. You might be able to take yourself off mute. There you go, Graham.
Yeah. Okay. Just briefly, I agree entirely, and it's easy for the likes of me to say, who's relatively well off. But I agree, if we want the services, we've got to pay a bit more. It's that simple. Parkway grass cutting, yes, there are a few junctions that could do with some attention.
Yeah.
The rest really doesn't matter that much. The junctions do matter.
I agree entirely, which, if I see a junction that I think is dangerous, I have to say the team are very quick on it, and they will come and do it. They are only human, and our guys do work responsively as well. Things can get missed, and occasionally it happens, and there is a regime and a plan. It's never a straightforward. It's even like cutting bushes off a path, or they're private bushes. But if it's a health and safety issue or something dangerous, then we have to step in and do it. But I'm glad you recognise that. People do have to pay what is a reasonable amount. And I'm just trying to say to you, Ken, particularly, and anybody else, is whilst what you pay you may think is a reasonable amount, and I pay a similar amount, what I'm trying to explain to you is, in reality, it's a lot less than other people, and that is the truth of the matter when compared with other authorities. So if we had 2% on our council tax for the next 5 years, that would put a considerable sum back into the pot and move that 7-Eleven closer to the 785. And at £785 per head, that is only a mean average. That is not high. That's just a mean average. But we're a long way from the mean average. And that is partly a problem of having such low council tax for such a long time. So Ken, by all means, always come back to me, drop me a line, ask me any question you want to ask, but work with James, who's a good guy, as you know, and the team will do their best to attend to any particular problems. But, you know, rest assured, if we can get more money into the system, and that's through central government as well, I'll be lobbying central government for something that's called fairer funding, which has been going on for quite some time. And we're hopeful that we may get more money. The other thing about Peterborough, it's grown particularly well in terms of, you know, the numbers of people wanting to come live here, raise a family, start a business, etc. The problem is the money from government has a lag and it's not followed that. So we have population growth here, but we don't have the support from government in terms of how that's manifested itself in the preceding months. So Ken, I hope, I know you won't be 100% happy. I get that. But look, I think we've spent quite a lot of time on that.
Too briefly then, if I may, Wayne.
I'll just I'll just introduce you again, Graham. So
okay, go on.
I'm watching Ask the Leader with me, Wayne Fitzgerald from Peterborough City Council. We heard from Ken there, who lives in the centre of town, and I think Graham Harris, his second time now, has got a question. Graham, you fire away. You ask your question.
Okay, if I can just finish on the other one. Central Park, I go there. I don't think there's any dire problems there, but I did notice after the festival there were some horrendous dents in the area where the all-terrain forklift trucks or whatever had run with the lugged tyres, and that really did make a bit of a mess. I don't know if somebody's being held accountable for that.
I'm sure Jane can make a note, and if it's not fixed, it will be fixed.
And one other thing, grass cutting. I'm in favour of not cutting it so much, as are a lot of people.
I entirely agree, and I should have mentioned that. So Ken, conversely, as Graham's just said, I get as many people saying from don't cut the grass because for all sorts of reasons. So you can't please all the people all the time. Go on, Graham.
Okay, emergency planning. Central government has been caught out a few times over the years by sudden crises. Here's one we're in now. Have you got any fuel in your tank? I wondered how well the City Council are prepared for maybe a serious flood, a severe blizzard, and maybe worst of all, extended loss of electricity supply over an extended period due to a national grid failure.
Thanks for that. You're very topical with the fuel crisis, of course, which we are dealing with that in terms of an internal perspective as well. Just so you know that obviously we're hopeful that the pressure will alleviate itself in the coming days, but it is acute, and we are working internally about how we get essential key staff to work, you know, whether it's social care or healthcare workers. So there is work going on within the council, and there is a plan for that kind of event happening. But you would be surprised if I said to you, no, there's no plan or nothing at all. So I'll just spend a couple of moments, if I may, to say, yes, in short, we are prepared, hopefully for most eventualities, but we employ a team of 4 officers. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a squeaky voice this week. They're shared with Cambridge County Council, and the sole focus of the team is planning and preparation for the type of major incidents that set out in your question. That team is operated 24/7, 365 days a year, and at all times a senior council director is also on call to provide strategic guidance to tactical officers and provide a direct link to myself and other locally elected members. The chief executive is also directly involved in any response to any emergency incidents in Peterborough. As required within excuse me, the Act, the council is a member of the Cambridge and Peterborough Local Resilience Forum, CPLRF, would be the acronym for that, which coordinates all of the preparation, planning and exercising for emergency incidents. Membership includes the Constabulary, of course, Cambridge Fire and Rescue and the East of England Ambulance Service Trust. The CPLRF is required to maintain a community risk register, which details the principal risks identified and scored in the UK and within the county itself. That covers Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. This register is available to view on the Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue website if you are minded to go on there and have a look for it. And the register drives the work of the forum in the preparation and testing of arrangements to deal with major incidents. PCC plays a full part in this process and the oversight of the activity. In the event of an incident, tactical and strategic groups are activated to respond. They then continue to operate as long as it's deemed necessary. The COVID-19 groups, for example, have continued to operate throughout the pandemic. From the risks identified in the risk register, a program of works to prepare and test response plans continue. Horizon scanning forms part of this work in order to identify new and emerging risks. All of this work is undertaken with partners in the CPLRF, and Peterborough City Council plays a full and active role in the emergency planning team and service directorates. The Chief Executive has a direct interest in all aspects of this work, strategic oversight and direct detailed input as necessary. So, oh dear, I'm squeaky today. Graham, I hope that answers some of your question.
I used to work for what most people still think of as the Electricity Board, now UKPN in this part of the world. Are you still there? Hello, hello.
Yeah, carry on. It's me just coughing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I have a litany of tales I could tell about problems in large institutions that have lost their electricity supply and are not prepared. So I'm interested to know what sort of preparations are made. For instance, people don't realise very often that with no electricity, their phones don't work because they've got an electronic telephone exchange.
Yeah, so you're quite right. I mean, long gone are the days where, you know, it was just plug in the wall and it worked, so you had the dial. But well, look, what I suggest you do is go to that risk register on the Cambridge Fire and Rescue website. But I can assure you, because we've been through, you know, whether they be related things or, you know, other issues in my time as a councillor, I would have to think back and recollect things. But there have been, you know, all sorts of emergency incidents, from marches in the city, you know, where I think one day we had the EDF, or, you know, all these things kick in with partners, you know, about risks and everything else. So electricity, weather, flooding. I mean, we had the we had the flash flood not too long ago, you know, and I was getting phone calls. I was out socially, you know, 10 o'clock at night in town, just having a pizza, and, you know, I was getting calls about flooding. So, you know, the team is in action and is spurred into action by, you know, a set of protocols that are laid out from our emergency planning. And, you know, as I say, go on to that site. Or if you want anything in particular, just, you know, drop me an email, and if there's any particular question you want answering about anything, I can ask the team that takes care of that to actually, you know, get back to you with any specific questions that you might have about whether it's electricity, what happens if, but what maybe. We had the explosion, if you remember, in Breton not too long ago, where people had to be evacuated into the Cresset.
Yes.
So, you know, all that stuff took place through the council because the emergency, you know, planning and services took over, which, you know, just shows how people come together when there is a time of crisis, and everybody, you know, tries to help each other. So, you know, those are good things, but we can't be, you know, we can't sit there and not plan for that. That would not be sensible. It's like everything else, you know, that old expression, sod's law, you know, whatever you plan for, there'll always be something that comes and bites you, but you try and plan for every eventuality. And I believe through the chief executive, she's managed to accommodate most things so far. Hope that helps answer some of your points, Graham.
Sure. Okay, I'll drop you a line then with one or two specific questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. It won't be me answering them because it'll be somebody far cleverer than me that knows what's going on. By all means, stay on the line, both of you, if you want, because there are a couple of other questions that I've got to get through tonight. Those people couldn't be with us, but Amanda is here to ask the first question, who is from James in Warrington. Who can't be here tonight, and this is quite a little, well, a topical one, but one that I hear many differing views on. So, Amanda, fire away.
Thank you, Wayne. Yes. So the question from James is, why has Peterborough offered to take in so many refugees? Surely we've already done our share. Peterborough voters have voted against more migration. Shouldn't a decision like this be voted on by councillors?
Okay, so James, thanks for your question. I would take issue with the fact that Peterborough has ever voted on migration. I don't recall there ever being a vote on migration. If you're referring to the Brexit vote, to some people it may have been about migration, but I don't believe that was the fundamental reason for the EU vote. But look, I'll be perfectly clear that I've had some rants and some criticism aimed at me because we have stepped up to support the government's position over the Afghanistan crisis, which is well publicized. But I'll take you back a little further, that in Peterborough it's always been a welcoming city, right back through to the 50s and 60s, where the first Bangladeshi and Pakistani people moved to the city from what was then a traditional railway town, engineering town. And I think you could extrapolate that across the UK and the colonies, in the sense that as a people, we've always been a welcoming nation and people. So it's not anything new that we might do this and step up, to do our bit, as it were. And you can even go back to the war, where we were taking in people from across Europe because it was the right thing to do. In more recent times, of course, we've had some Syrian refugees come to the UK and indeed Peterborough, and we've accommodated those. And the article, I recall, said something about, up to 100 people. But in reality, that's 20 families of 5 people. That's all that is. And I know for some people it's difficult, that they go, oh, why are you doing this? And, there's people here in greater need. And this, I get all that and I understand it. But generally speaking, those people haven't got a gun held to their head and are in danger of losing their lives. For just political dogma or religious beliefs. So these are people, by the way, also that have assisted our forces, our personnel, in terms of the diplomatic personnel in Afghanistan, and this you kind of fail to notice it's dominated the headlines, and there's been some distressing, harrowing scenes that we see on the news nightly. So let's be clear. This is a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. This is not a normal set of circumstances like people in a boat coming over from Calais. These are people that, are on the edge and at real crisis point. So my view is we must, with the same tradition we've always done, step up to the plate and give them support. And at the same time, I remain committed to helping those in our society that need the help. But every day we have to prioritize, and I have to prioritize what we do and don't do, and which order we do it in. And it's difficult, it is difficult, whichever way I do it. So the government has asked all councils to commit to rehousing Afghani refugees, and Peterborough has pledged its support, which is, I believe, is the right thing to do to what is this international crisis. We've agreed to resettle up to 100, but as I said, that is most likely to be families of 5 or so, which is only 20 families in all. But they're at risk due to the work, of course, alongside our armed forces and the British government as been working overseas. So there will be mainly families. Many of them will have worked as military interpreters, often risking their lives in helping our forces, and there are increased risk of harm from the Taliban, quite frankly. You know, let's not muck about here. That's reality. This is life and death. As we know, this is not, you know, this is not something we should take lightly. And whilst, you know, I know people are living in overcrowded, cramped conditions and this and that, the other, I get all that, but this is life and death. And again, here, somebody will say, well, it's life and death here. Yeah, but who's prioritizing? Well, it's really different. So we're trying to find suitable housing, which, you know, and not kind of bumping other people. So ideally in the private sector, we like people to come forward for that and offer accommodation, which the council is underwriting the rent through government. So, you know, if you in the private sector and you have some property. As I say, we're also running something similar, or we have been for some time, for the Syrian refugees, which is resulted in several families settling in our communities here. Something we welcome as a proud, you know, we're a great multicultural city, Peterborough. You know, it's really a great thing to be able to say that on how we all get on and integrate. You know, by and large, we don't experience the problems that, you know, you see in other urban areas of the UK. I think Peterborough is, you know, a very tolerant multicultural city. So I'm confident in the long run that the success that this initiative will bring if we take in these people. The decision has no bearing on whether we support people who already live here. Of course we will. You know, that goes without saying that as a country we have this state safety net, which, you know, we're fortunate to have. Whereas in, you know, Afghanistan, they don't have that. And many parts of the world, they don't have that. They don't even have a right to vote. You know, it's this is, you know, this is something we should do. And as I say, I don't recall residents voting against migration. So I hope, I'm not sure you'll agree from the sense of your question, but I hope that most people will see that we are, you know, shall we say, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing as human beings that we should do to help people, particularly those who have helped us. You know, what should we do? Abandon them? And I did ask somebody who messaged me on Messenger, you know, well, what's the alternative? Tell me what the alternative is if we don't do this. I shudder to think what the alternative is. So Amanda, I think we have one final question tonight.
Yeah.
Go on with that.
Yeah, we do. So the final question tonight is from David Smith, and his question is as follows. I would like to know why you seem so determined to build as many apartments as possible in Peterborough city centre, while seem to have no interest in helping businesses to serve those people. The new development on the current city market site is totally out of proportion with everything around it, plus offers very little parking for those new residents and means the destruction of those market traders' livelihoods, as you have not offered any alternative sites. I walked around the city centre this weekend and felt really ashamed, as it was dirty, rubbish strewn, cars were parked illegally, there were a lot of homeless people and beggars around, and it seems to offer mainly charity shops and betting shops.
I was just take myself off mute. This, you know, to some degree, again, is about perception. I walk around the city centre and, you know, occasionally I go, oh my God, you know, that could be cleaned up, or why is that car parked there? And, you know, I get harangued on Twitter about it. You know, I'm not a traffic warden, you know, there are traffic wardens employed by the council. There are 13 of them. They can't be everywhere at once, but to think that they're not doing a job is just not reality, because I could give you stats and numbers about, you know, how many parking tickets we give out, but it's not all about the city centre. One of the things I have actioned is some new parking legislation to come in. So, if you're in London, you go in a bus lane, you can be fine because you've been seen on camera doing it. We can't do that here. We don't have the power to do that. If you drive down a wrong way street or up a no entry, we can't do anything about it. But when we get the new powers, we can do. There's some things we can and can't do in parking terms. But even the things we can do, if the parking attendant or traffic warden, whatever, is not there to see you and they can't be everywhere, well then, that is just the way it is. But they are issuing tickets all the time across the city. And indeed, cleanliness, again, I'd like to have more people. I know the guys personally in the city centre, that are out cleaning every day. I speak to them, I ask them how it's going. They know me and they do the best they can do. But, if you go in there at 9 o'clock at night and somebody's been in McDonald's and tipped out a bin and stuff like that, it's just, you just go, why do people do that? Because look, don't blame the city council for litter. Blame the people who drop it. Look to your neighbours, your friends, your family. Go, well, why have you just thrown that on the floor? Put it in the bin. There are plenty of bins in the city centre. So there are a few elements, to your question. Charity shops and betting shops. Well, why shouldn't there be? They all have a place. But our void rate in Peterborough, if you look around, the kind of mix of shops we have is actually quite good when you go to some other places where, I won't name names of other cities, but there are a lot of empty shops. We, touch wood, have been very, very fortunate. We've lost a few things, and I've commented it on before about John Lewis and things, but we've only ourselves to blame because, stop shopping at Amazon. Stop shopping online. If you want retail opportunities, we have to support them. But retail has changed with the advent of technology. So I don't take for 1 minute that we don't have a good number of different shops. And in fact, there are opportunities now coming back for niche and boutique shops. Maybe the smaller retailers will get a look in if some of the bigger shops have gone. But they're commercial decisions they make. And John Lewis, even, let's not, mess about here. They took the conscious decision because they're probably making more money online from their online sales than when they were with a shop and staff. And that's a commercial decision they've made because that's the way retail is going. Talking about the the market, for example, and the scheme. Well, what is being proposed is being proposed by the Peterborough Investment Partnership. And if you don't like it, say so. It's not a done deal. They have to go through a planning process and a planning approvals process in order to get that scheme through. And there's all sorts of representations, Historic England, the Civic Society, neighbours, our own planners, may have words to say about it. But we have a housing crisis in the UK. And there are many people, single people particularly, or young families, or professionals that need accommodation that might be city centre based because they don't have a car. So, on the one hand, we're trying to encourage public transport and cycling and, say there won't be, and you need to be based in the city centre or, you need a good bus network or cycling network, all these things connect. So, as for the scheme itself, well, there is a process that is followed in terms of planning. So if you don't like it, then make a representation to the planning department. That's what it's for. It's not down to me to agree. I have my own view. About all sorts of planning applications. So on that, it's a regeneration area of the city, much needed in my view. It's been, looking a little shabby. We look to invest in new facilities for the market in the long term and improve, the shopping experience in the city centre. So that work is underway. We've just announced that we're looking to relocate from a market perspective into an area that has higher footfall in Bridge Street. So that's kind of watch this space. There's a bit of antisocial behaviour as well in the city centre. I notice it and I go, well, it's kids on skateboards or this or that and the other. I'm just thinking, oh my God, don't damage the paving, don't damage the Guildhall steps. So, it's really frustrating. But it's not within our gift to control antisocial behaviour. That is a policing matter. So I'll just finish with the general kind of city centre view is that we compared with where it was 10, 12 years ago, it's a much better place in terms of public realm now than it was previously. Again, not perfect, and we're trying to design out cars and pedestrianize the areas, because one of the things we get a lot of is about cycling through the city centre. My view is it's pedestrianized. That means there aren't bikes and cars and everything else. And we need to remember that my own wife was injured, by a cyclist hurtling through Bridge Street. And of course, I do sympathise with cyclists, but go down Wentworth Street then if you want to go through town, and go that way. There's plenty of cycling opportunities and routes through the city, and I want to do more for cycling, but I want to do it in a proper constructive way, not back of a fag packet with pop-up stuff that nobody's been consulted about or anything else. So in the long term, approaches to the city centre, let's make it safe, more accessible for cycling and walking. Let's try and keep the areas clean, but again, I can only do what I can do with the money we have. And our team within Aragon, do a great job, particularly in the city centre, and it's often challenging with undesirable people, kind of make it challenging, shall we say, in terms of the way they want to live their life, and drop rubbish and litter and everything else. So again, we will do what we can to stop them and find them, but it is people that do that, not the council. So I hope that gives you some insight. And again, always drop me a line anytime you like with any questions that you have. We try to do this once a month. I think this is about the 4th time. So it is, if you have a question, ask the leader at peterborough.gov.uk. Thanks tonight to Graham and to Ken, and also to James and Amanda for being on the call. So we'll have another one in a month's time, but look out for mentions of it in the press or on our social media channels. Always happy to try and answer everything. You may not be happy with the answer, but I'll try to be honest, straightforward and direct with people, because it just means that we're accessible. And I want to keep it that way. So thanks for your time. Tune in again in a month's time. And once more, it's Wayne Fitzgerald, leader of Peterborough City Council, and drop me a line anytime at asktheleader.peterborough.gov.uk. Peterborough.gov.uk. There we go. Got it that time. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.